All right, let's dive in. Today, we're looking at something that you might not think is super exciting, but trust me, it is. Open educational resources. Specifically, how they're being used to change the way we teach and learn physics.
Yeah, really shake things up.
For this deep dive, we're going to be focusing on this webpage. It showcases all of these interactive simulations created by someone named Lukang Lawrence Wee for open source physics at Singapore.
It's fascinating because it's not just like an article or a blog post. It's like this portal to a whole different way of learning. We're talking about interactive simulations on everything from like basic mechanics to stuff that makes my head spin, like quantum physics.
Right. So cool. It's like this digital playground for anyone who wants to really understand how the universe works. There's a lot to cover, so let's start with the simulations themselves. There's one on flight dynamics, for example, that lets you play around with a virtual gimbal and see how it affects how things fly.
It's like taking those classic physics textbooks with all those diagrams and formulas and actually bringing them to life. Instead of just reading about like forces and motion, you're actually manipulating them. You get to see the cause and effect play out right in front of you.
Exactly. It really makes you think about just how powerful that visual, hands-on element is for learning. And Liu Kang Lawrence Wee, the guy who created these simulations, seems to get that. He's not just a developer, he's also part of the Ministry of Education in Singapore.
Which I think is really interesting. It means his work isn't just some side project, it's really connected to real-world education. He actually presented these simulations at the 6th International Conference on Learning, Education, and Pedagogy in Hong Kong.
So he's not messing around, he's really trying to make a difference. It seems like his core philosophy is that this kind of interactive learning, especially through simulations, leads to a way deeper understanding than just using traditional methods.
Yeah, but I do wonder, simulations can be really effective, but is there a risk of oversimplifying things? How do we make sure students are still wrestling with the complexities and the nuances of physics?
That's a really good point. Maybe we'll find some answers as we dig a little deeper. Speaking of digging deeper, Wee hasn't just stopped at creating these simulations. He's actually gone a step further and created ebook chapters in EPUB 3 format that integrate the simulations directly into the text and illustration.
Oh, wow. So you've got the simulations right there alongside the explanations.
Mhm.
That's smart because EPUB 3 is designed for interactivity. It's not just a static page. It's a platform where you can have these dynamic simulations embedded. And get this, these ebooks are available on platforms like Apple iBooks, Google Play Books, and Kindle.
So anyone with a tablet or a smartphone could potentially access these, right? Talk about accessibility. This brings us to a bigger conversation about open educational resources, OERR.
Right, because this accessibility is a core part of this whole movement.
Right.
OER basically means educational materials that are free to use, adapt, and share. It's about making sure everyone has access to quality learning, no matter where they come from or their background.
Which totally aligns with what Liu Kang is doing. Before we get into the impact of OER more broadly, let's go back to those ebooks for a second. He's developed specific prototypes focusing on simple harmonic motion and gravity, tailored to the Singapore-Cambridge General Certificate of Education Advanced level.
Which is basically their version of AP courses for those who aren't familiar with the Singaporean education system. It's cool that he's customizing these for specific curricula because it shows how adaptable this approach can be. It's not just a one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay, so let's talk about OER a little more. What are the benefits besides just cost savings? Which obviously is a huge one, especially for students.
Well, just imagine. Imagine being a teacher in a rural community. Maybe you don't have a lot of resources. OER gives you access to high-quality materials that you can then adapt to your students' specific needs. It's about giving teachers the tools they need and creating a more level playing field for learning.
Just like it democratizes knowledge, right?
Exactly. And it allows for this more collaborative learning environment. When educators can freely share and adapt materials, it creates this ripple effect where everything's constantly improving and evolving.
It's like this ever-growing library, but instead of just books, you've got interactive simulations, lesson plans, videos, all sorts of resources. So how does this actually play out in the classroom? Are teachers just showing these simulations on a projector?
I mean, it can be as simple as that.
Yeah.
But the beauty is that it can be so much more. Imagine integrating these simulations into a lab activity. Students could experiment with different variables and see the results happen in real time. It takes those abstract concepts and makes them tangible, you know?
I get it. I can see how that would be way more engaging than just sitting through a lecture. I remember struggling with gravity in school, trying to wrap my head around all those forces. If only I had a simulation back then.
Exactly. And it's not just about making it more fun, it's about making it more effective. When you can actually see how changing one variable affects another, it helps you understand the underlying principles so much better.
So it's not just about memorizing formulas, it's about really grasping the concepts behind them.
Precisely. This makes me think, if this works so well for physics, what about other subjects? Could we use simulations to teach chemistry, biology, maybe even history or literature?
Whoa, that's a really interesting thought. Imagine simulating a chemical reaction, or exploring the human body in 3D, or even experiencing historical events through VR.
Right. The possibilities are kind of mind-blowing. It really highlights how adaptable this approach is. It's not just about physics, it's about a fundamental shift in how we think about learning.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the simulations, the ebooks, the impact of OER. Let's go back to the website itself for a minute. It's clearly more than just a collection of simulations, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a treasure trove of information. You've got detailed descriptions of each simulation, supporting materials, even links to related research. It's clear that Liu Kang put a ton of work into this project.
Which speaks to his passion for both physics and open education. He's not just creating these tools, he's creating a whole ecosystem to support them.
And that's so important for this movement to really take off. It needs that kind of dedication and support. It's not enough to just create resources. You need to build a community around them.
A community of educators, learners, developers, all working together to make knowledge more accessible and engaging. That's where the real power of OER lies.
It's this collective effort. Everyone building on each other's work, constantly iterating and improving. It's cool to see how this is playing out in physics education, but the implications go way beyond that.
This reminds me of what we see in the tech world. Open source software has totally revolutionized how we develop and use technology. It feels like OER has the potential to do the same thing for education.
Yeah, it's a democratizing force, breaking down barriers and fostering collaboration. Who knows what incredible innovations will come out of this open exchange of knowledge.
Now, with all this talk about simulations and ebooks, let's not forget about the source material itself. There was more than just text and links, right? There were also some photos included.
You're right. They seem to be from the conference where Liu Kang presented his work. While they don't give us any specific details, they do offer a glimpse into the context of his presentation.
We see images of attendees, maybe other educators who are just as passionate about innovative teaching methods. It adds this human element to the story, reminding us that behind these digital resources are real people with a shared vision.
It makes you realize that this isn't just about technology. It's about people coming together to try to make a difference in education.
And that's what I find so inspiring about this whole deep dive. It's not just about making physics more fun, it's about making knowledge more accessible and engaging and more equitable for everyone.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that education is about people. Technology can be a powerful tool, but it's the passion and dedication of people like Liu Kang that really make a difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways here? We've talked about a lot: interactive simulations, ebooks, the whole idea behind open educational resources.
I think for me, it's the way all of these things come together that's so exciting. We're seeing a real shift from passive learning to active engagement, from textbooks to simulations, from closed classrooms to open collaboration.
And at the heart of it all is this belief that knowledge should be available to everyone. Liu Kang Lawrence Wee's work is a perfect example of this, showing how we can use technology and the principles of open education to create a learning experience that's more equitable and more engaging.
He's really inspiring. He's not just creating these resources, he's encouraging others to get involved too. It's like he's saying, here's the blueprint, let's build something amazing together.
Which brings us to a question for you, the listener. How can we apply this approach to other areas of study? We touched on this earlier, but it's worth thinking about some more.
Imagine interactive simulations for history. You could step into key events and experience them firsthand. Or for literature, you could explore a text through interactive visualizations.
The possibilities are endless. It's up to all of us to explore these possibilities, to push the boundaries of what we can do in education.
So, as you go forward, armed with all this new knowledge, we encourage you to check out the Open Source Physics at Singapore website. See for yourself the power of interactive learning. Explore the simulations, dive into the ebooks, and let your curiosity be your guide.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be inspired to create something amazing yourself. That's the beauty of open education. It empowers everyone to be both a learner and a creator.
And with that, we'll leave you to start your own journey of discovery. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of open educational resources.